Hi, Mr. Recaps here. This young man is super weird. There are mysterious parts of his body coming out of it. Is he even a real human? However, he is not the only one. There are other people like him. Even though Dong-soo has no idea, even as a kid he had an accident and fell off a tree. His body pulled itself together and Soo was just fine. The rest of the kids witnessed this incident, and they started calling him a monster. Those words hurt his little soul. His parents realized he was a monster and abandoned him. Just cut a picture of himself out and placed it in a frame with a different picture of his parents resembling the family he would like to have. Soo goes about his daily routine before he returns home. Suddenly, he is approached by a minivan, and a crazy guy comes out of it. The man attacks him with an axe, but Soo is able to avoid getting hit. However, he is put in a chokehold by a big strong man, and he has no chance of not falling asleep. Later, when Soo wakes up, he finds himself on a surgery table, and an insane retired doctor steals his body parts to sell them in the black market. Soo has fallen victim to a trafficking gang. When the doctor receives a phone call, he says to the man at the other end of the line that everything is fine. Behind him, Soo's body starts composing itself again. The young man gets up and steps on the ground. He is missing his eyes, but he is still able to see himself through his detached eyes that are placed on a table. The doctor sees this and calls for help. Soo grabs one of his eyes and attaches it back into his eye socket. As the gangsters come in, Soo has to escape and jumps out of a window. However, his one eye is still with the doctor. Since he is missing one eye, Soo now wears an eye patch. In the morning, people start gathering around something that looks like a beautiful sculpture. Out of nowhere, the sculpture starts bleeding, and the people realize that this is actually a human. Detective Choi runs there and takes the sculpture back to the lab. This is not a real piece of art. It is a dead woman who has been made a sculpture. Choi knows that he has to deal with a weird killer. This time, on the sculpture's body, the forensics personnel see a marking consisting of the letter PL. Choi and his fellow detective Yam assume that this killer signed what he considers to be his art, just like real artists do. Soon, 2 more bodies are found. Detective Choi believes that he is dealing with a serial killer, but this one is more dangerous because he is smart. When 1 more body is found, Soo happens to be in the crowd that night. He starts playing the guitar, but he suddenly experiences some form of pain in his eye socket without being able to explain it. His vision transitions to another place, and he is able to see a computer screen. A man is watching a birth chart. On this chart, there is also a marking that seems like the letters P and L are written together. When the pain is gone, Soo loses this image. He knows that he is being connected to the person who has his eye. The next morning, Soo goes to work on a junkyard. 3 young guys are bullying his old boss, and Soo tries to help the man. As he takes the old man away, the 3 young guys are not yet satisfied and they want to fight him. One of them pulls a knife and threatens Soo with it. Soon, he does more than just threaten Soo and cuts his ear. Soo grabs his ear from the ground and tells these guys that this is enough for a day. While they also see his eye, the young guys are scared and run away. Then Soo attaches back to his head. Later, Soo decides that he has to get his eye back. He returns to the place he was operated on, believing that his eye is going to be there. But he is not going to have enough time to look around for it. The bad guys spot him and they hunt after him. Soo tries to escape through some alleys, but he is cornered unexpectedly. A girl named Irang emerges and takes him to yet another dead end. Soo asks her if she is working with the traffickers, but the girl has other intentions. She uses a knife to cut his leg because she wants to see if he is what she calls a connect. Indeed, Soo's leg heals instantly. The 2 of them won't have enough time to talk because the gangsters are approaching. Soo tries to run away, but Irang has another shortcut for him. Knowing that he will be okay, she just throws him down the road. Soo gets up pretty fast and runs away. When Soo returns home, the connection happens again. But this time, things escalate. He sees the man working on an album that includes several drawings on a page. He also sees the symbol PL. Unfortunately, Soo now knows that his eye is in the head of the serial killer who is terrorizing the city with his lethal art. Soo jumps online to do some research about it, but he will have more clues revealed for him soon. The next day at work, Sue has another connection with the killer and sees the face of a woman named Suni. In addition, he sees a piece of art and realizes this is a famous square in the city. Sue rushes to that square, looking around for the killer. He has yet another vision and sees Suni again. The killer is having lunch with her and their friends from the company they work in. Sue runs to that place and bumps into a man named Jean Cup. Sue has no idea that this is the man he is looking for. Cup is the serial killer who likes to turn his victims into art. As he enters the store, Sue tries to talk to Suni and asks her about the man who was sitting with her. Everybody believes that Sue is a stalker, so a guy sitting with Suni and her friends tries to push him away. Sue knows that there is nothing he can do, so he just leaves. Later that night, Suni visits Cup because she has a crush on him. But she has no idea that she is stepping right into the nest of the wolf. The next day, Sue enters the building of the company where all these people are working and looking for the killer from his visions. However, Suni's friend recognizes him from yesterday. As it is revealed, Suni is dead and her friend blames Sue for it. Seeing that Sue looks like a psycho because he is missing an eye, the policeman arrests him. As they intend to walk him to the police station, the girl from earlier appears again and uses a taser on the policeman. Then she cuts the straps from Sue's wrists, not being careful at all because she knows that Sue will heal even if she cuts him. The two of them go back to Sue's place, and they have some time to discuss. Irang seems to know many things about the people she calls connects, so Sue naturally wonders about it. As Irang claims she knows about these people because she has witnessed a connect in action since she was a child. Back then, a truck was driving toward her, but a boy jumped on the way and pushed her away. The boy was hit by the truck. The driver ran away because he was scared, and there was nobody else around. That boy's body started fixing itself, and the boy got up. He was totally fine. The boy ran away, and Irang never knew his name, but she continued doing research on these special people to this day, as she has figured out these people have something to do with the country's largest pharmaceutical. Sue is not the only person with special abilities. There are more people like him, and Irang will even introduce him to some of them soon. For now, the girl advises him to wear sunglasses because the police are looking for a man with an eye patch. They don't want to make it that easy on them. The two of them proceed to do some groceries, but Sue realizes that there are pictures of him everywhere, so they have to leave this place. When Sue gets back to the junkyard, he listens to his own voice on the radio. He sent an anonymous demo version of a famous song to a producer, and it seems like the producer liked it. Later, Sue wants to know more about this killer's birth chart, so he visits an astrologist to ask her some questions. As it appears, the symbol used by the killer is the symbol that corresponds to the planet Pluto. The next day, another murder takes place, and everybody rushes to the scene, including Sue. At the same time, Sue is being followed by the traffickers, and they spot him in the crowd. They start chasing him, and the police start chasing them. One of the gangsters finds Sue, but the young man has toughened up and beats him. Then the guy with the axe comes behind him and cuts his hand. However, Sue's hand is attached to his body again. Irang appears from behind and uses the taser on the guy with the axe. The two of them run away, and Irang exchanges contact information with him. Elsewhere, Detective Choi wants to have a talk with Cup. The questions he asks are pretty basic, but the detective realizes that Cup is a narcissist. Later, Cup plays a music track on his computer, and that track is none other than Sue's music. The song triggers their connection, and the two of them experience pain in their eyes. The next day, Sue tries to get on him, but Cup is smart and he escapes. Then it is revealed that Cup knows the producer who published the song that triggered the connection, producer Z, and asks him about it. However, Z has no idea who is behind that song, as the artist chose to remain unknown. He tried to contact him to discuss the song's rights, but no luck. Cup has started figuring out that somebody is connecting with him through the eye, so he uses the song as a trigger. That same night, once he plays the song, Sue connects to him. Cup makes a drawing on his album and writes that he is coming for Sue. But in addition to that, it appears that Sue is preparing to create another piece of deadly art. This time, his art will involve 3 little girls. Sue is terrified and feels obligated to help those girls survive by finding the killer first. Later, Sue walks by a street singer who plays his song on the guitar, and his connection to Cup is triggered again. Sue realizes that his eye is looking at him because the killer is stalking him. The two of them see each other, but Cup drives away. Sue runs after him, but he is stopped by the police as he tries to enter the highway on foot. Detective Choi takes him to the station, where Detective Yam asks him questions. He shows Sue the footage of him going to the astrologist, which makes him think that he is the killer who likes to carve the Pluto symbol on his victims' bodies. Sue denies everything Yam asks him, and that makes the detective angry. Yam tries to rough him up, but nothing is coming out of it. So Choi tells him to take a break and go outside. Choi starts asking his own questions, but the young man is silent. He looks around, indicating that he is not comfortable having so many people around listening to him. Shai realizes that and takes the young man up on the roof for a private talk. There, Sue reveals he is special and demonstrates that by breaking his wrist in order to get the handcuff out of his hand. Then his wrist cures immediately. The only problem is that Choi lied to him, and he has Detective Yam listening to them on the phone. Sue does not like that, and Detective Choi can tell. He aims at and warns him to stay put. The young man jumps from the roof to the ground. His skull cracks open, but soon his body composes itself back, and he runs away. Shai tries to get after him, but Sue is long gone. The young man communicates with Irang, who tells him to avoid his house because that is the first place the police are going to look for him. In the meantime, Cup decides to kidnap the dirty doctor who operated on Sue in order to ask him about his eye. The doctor wants to stay alive, so he tells him everything about what happened with Sue. Then he pleads with Sue to let him go and reminds him of how much he helped him. When Sue went to see him, he was suffering a terminal illness that caused his organs to fail. But by replacing some of them, he is still alive. Back in the present, Cup does not seem to be quite grateful to the doctor, so he just kills him. Elsewhere, Irang is being followed by one of the traffickers. The man approaches her from behind and holds her at knife point, but he is no match for Irang. She beats him up and kills him before proceeding to meet with Sue. She takes him to an abandoned theater that can serve as their temporary shelter. Furthermore, she has one more thing to show him. She uses the knife to demonstrate that her body is able to heal up just like Sue's body. The story she told him about the truck was true, but there was no boy saving her. She was hit by the truck, but she survived after her body was put back together. The two of them cut their palms, and their bodies are naturally drawn together. As they hold each other's hands, they share their first kiss. Sue wakes up in the middle of the night as he experiences yet another connection. Sue knows that, and he makes sure Sue will see that he is having another victim in his lab. At the same time, Irang wakes up and sees on the cameras that the gangsters are coming for them. Sue also receives a video on his phone that some other members of the trafficking gang are holding his old boss. Sue is torn between Irang and the old man, but she tells him to go save his boss because she knows how to take care of herself. Sue arrives at the junkyard pretty soon, but he is apprehended by two strong gangsters who hit him from behind and then tie his hands behind his back using some chains. Sue and his boss are in big trouble, so the young man decides to take action. He leans back to a piece of machinery and cuts the chains while his hands are also being cut. However, his hands recover very fast, and he starts fighting against the gangsters. Sue kills both of them while his boss looks at him amazed. He asks him if he is a monster, which brings back some unpleasant memories for Sue when he was a kid and his body literally broke and fixed itself back up. The other kid called him a monster. However, the old man is thankful for still being alive and tells the young man that his secret is safe with him. He also tells him to go, and he will clean up the dead bodies. Back in the abandoned theater, Irang is surrounded by the gangsters, and they take her back to their boss. Irang has a talk with them, but she can't risk staying there for too long because these traffickers might start using her body. Therefore, Irang attacks them and escapes after killing a couple of them. Right next, Irang meets with Sue and tells him everything that happened. The gang suspected that she is a connect, and they cut her face to check if it would heal. Her face healed, so they know that they are special. Then Sue connects to Cup again, who uses blood to write a message for him in the mirror. Sue talks to Irang about the killer, saying that he is preparing to do something big, and he is the only one who can stop him. Sue arrives at the meeting point later that night but sees Cup walking out of his car in a biohazard protective suit. As it appears, Sue has walked right into a trap. Cup presses a button and overwhelms the atmosphere with a sleeping gas. Sue falls to the ground with no hope of staying awake. In the meantime, Irang meets with another connect she calls Gideon. The man is huge and he seems pretty strong. Irang wants his help because the better way to defend is to attack. She has to put an end to the people who are after them. Next, Irang walks right into the den of the gangsters, which seems very amusing to them. However, she also introduces them to her friend. The two connects start fighting the gangsters, and they eliminate them one by one. Gideon uses his tremendous strength, while Irang uses her knife skills. Once they are done, Irang opens her phone to check Sue's location, as she is obviously tracking him. When Sue wakes up, he finds himself tied up in the back of a van. At the same time, Jean Cup is having strange fantasies. He imagines that he is dying alongside Sue, and he is telling him about his grand plan, which is for them to become one. Since I connected them to one another, they can become one if Cup takes his brain and puts it in his head. When they arrive in Cup's lab, the killer starts explaining his big plans, as well as introducing Sue to the doctor who took his eyes out. Then he brings one of his other prisoners inside, and Sue realizes that this man is Producer Z. Sue wants to showcase his plan and cuts 2 fingers, one from Sue and one from Z. A normal finger would not attach back to the hand, but when he brings Sue's finger near Z's hand, the finger attaches to the hand, even though it does not belong to the original body. On the other hand, Sue's body also absorbs Z's finger. Sue asks Cup to spare Z's life, but Cup will only do that if Sue agrees to merge with him. The 2 prisoners end up in a huge fridge. Sue tries to talk to Producer Z in order to keep him alive, but the man is having a hard time since his body is unable to withstand such extreme cold exposure. He is not Winter Soldier after all. As the man dies, Sue is infuriated and he forces his hands to cut through the handcuffs. Of course, he heals up instantly once more, while Cup is preparing for his crazy experiment. Sue tries to break the fridge's door, but he is unable to do so. Meanwhile, Irang parts ways with Gideon and follows the phone signal to find Sue. As she approaches Cup's location, she is attacked by the maniac killer. Her hand is cut, but she heals immediately. The 2 of them start fighting each other until the serial killer sends her flying to his lab. However, he decides to walk away as he knows that he won't probably be able to kill her. Irang finds the huge fridge and frees Sue. At the same time, Detective Choi has put the clues together and he arrives at the same building looking for Cup. Back in the lab, Irang tells Sue that she has to find her friend. But she also tells him that he has to find Cup and put an end to this madness. Detective Choi comes face to face with Gideon and points his gun at him. Things get a bit out of hand and Choi shoots the big man. However, Gideon is able to heal and gets back up. Irang finds the 2 of them fighting and calms them down. She explains to Choi that they are not his real enemy. They have been hunted down for such a long time by everyone they know, and this has to stop. Elsewhere, Detective Yam is searching for Cup, but the killer sees him first and terminates him. However, the killer is not free to go yet, as Sue is also looking for him. The Connect grabs an axe and finally comes face to face with the killer. Cup tries a few dirty tricks. He starts singing Sue's song so he connects to his eye, and his vision is confused. However, Cup starts to use a pistol to keep Sue back because the young man is rushing toward him. Although Sue receives a few shots, even in his head, he is able to recover. He approaches the killer, grabs him by his throat, and lifts him in the air. It is time for Sue to reclaim his eye. Once he has his eye back, Sue starts beating the killer up. As he is about to finish him with a long knife, Detective Choi holds his hand and asks him not to do it because that would mean he becomes a killer himself. Plus, Choi would have to persecute him if he becomes a murderer. Sue is convinced and runs away with Irang. However, the 2 of them are apprehended by a bunch of armed helicopters aiming at them. Let's not forget about Sue's pinky finger, which is now moving on Producer Z's body. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.